Okay, so in order to explain in a more clear way, I switched to the finished drawing application again. As you can see, there is some more functionality already present. So just to visualize what we want to accomplish, on top you'll see this slider that's changing mode or state. If I just take it back from all the way to the right. So when it's all the way to the right, we're in append mode, but what we want to accomplish is an extra mode being what I call parallel drawing mode. So I'll just explain or show you. So as I made append mode red, I'll also pick a red color, but this will make later. But anyway, the thing we have now is that if we draw a line, then our timeline will be representing this complete line. But if I want to append the line now, I zoom out and I place it like halfway because we want to append a line to this line. So if I just append the line, then the timeline will rewind both of those lines. So our timeline has doubled. And if I zoom out again and I append two extra lines, or timeline has doubled again. So each time we append, our timeline is increasing in length. So that's nice already. But let's say that now I would like to draw a line in parallel to this first line. So at the same time as this one is drawn, I want to draw some other context just to say or visualize like while this line is drawing, this is also happening and so on. But if I do this now, like in the mode we already had, or we already built, if I do it now, you'll see that if I slide it back, it's happening all the way at the end. And only when I'm here, the first line is drawn, but only when I'm at the back, the line that I wanted to happen in parallel or at the same time of this first line, it's happening too late. So therefore, I'll just remove everything, all the lines, and again, make those 4 lines. 1, 2, 3, 4 lines. And the thing we are going to build is the next one. So if I move back, you'll see the slider change to I and O for in and out points, which allows me to use Shift I and Shift O to set in and out points. So therefore, if I move all the way back, use Shift I for an in point, and let's set the out point right about, let's Shift O here. And now I can also use a relevant color just to match the green in and out visual. Now I can already reveal more if I want. But if I now draw in parallel and move it back, it will actually happen in parallel. So not all the way at the back, but now it allows me to really not lengthen or enlarge the timeline by appending to the end of the sequence, but really going back to a portion or a part of a drawing. And while a part of this drawing is happening, I can really say like, okay, if this third line is drawing, I want to create maybe a vertical line that's going down, or maybe even when I'm halfway of this line and only until here. So between this part and this part, I actually want a line coming down. So therefore like this. So now you'll see that this line splits open and I can do some fun things using this extra parallel drawing mode, which is very nice. So back to the counters. So as you can see, the counter we were already incrementing holds the how do I need to say, the total count of lines. So 4 red lines and 2 green lines totals 6 6 lines in total. So these 6 lines, that's the count we are already keeping, and it's actually driving the replication. So this we can keep, this we still need, but we need an extra counter that's only keeping a record of the length of this timeline, and that's actually the amount of lines that we added in append mode. So therefore we need a separate counter, which I will be calling appendLength. So appendLength, yeah, I'm just writing with my mouse, so it's not super easy. But anyway, this counter we will now be adding in order to keep track of how many lines were created in append mode, as this will determine the length of this slider actually. Okay, so here we have the constant keeping the count that's driving the replication. So that's being used here. So this one we keep, but we add one and we call it the append length, like that. Let's copy this one, we might need it. And then we go in here, and here we can say, let's see, so okay, this can always take place, the incrementing on L select. So each time we draw a line, the replication needs to happen. So therefore always the first channel, the count channel, needs to be incremented. But we will add a check if operator, I think it's called null2. Let's use channel 1. If this one is like this, so if null2 that's being used here or created, so if the slider is all the way to the right being 1, so this is what we're checking. So if we're all the way to the right, so if null2 is 1, then we would like to increment this append length, because then we're actually increasing this timeline length, and that's what this append length is representing. So let's use counts per Bach value 1 as it's the second channel, so 0, 1, and let's increment it in that case. So now we can already check if this is happening. So let's clear all the lines. So both will be set to 0, but not yet for the append length. So also take care of this one when hitting Ctrl+Shift+W. We also want to clear the append length. So for value 1, we will also set this one to 0. So now if we start drawing some lines while all the way to the right, both will get incremented. But if we slightly move back, this null2, which we see here, will not be 1, meaning that the count will still be incremented because the replication still needs to take place for the third line we're drawing. But we're not in append mode, and therefore the append length shouldn't be incremented, and that's the case. So we're not all the way to the right, just slightly back, and we keep drawing lines. The count is incremented, but append length not. So if I again move all the way to the right, and now both are being incremented. So therefore I'm able to keep count of the replications that need to take place, but also the length of the timeline. So what we can do now is we can go inside of our master in order to say in this create callback, we can say use those count values or rather the append values now, because we don't want to use the count values anymore. We want to use the append length channel in this case, and we only want to use this one if operator, let's go look one level up, null 2, if this one equals 1, then we want to use the append length values. But if it's not 1, so else, we want to use some in and out point values. So therefore we will copy this first part. We will close this one. So again, if the slider is all the way to the right, meaning if null 2 is 1, then we will populate the in and out points using the append length. But if it's not at 1, we will be in the parallel drawing mode, which I explained earlier. And then we will want to use some in and out points that we still need to define or set and store. But anyway, then we should use those in and out points as in and out points for this particular or this specific instance of the line. So again, I will just write down the code that we need for this. So let's go look one level up. I haven't created this one yet, but I know that I want some variables or some in and out points stored one level up. So I will just name it IO for now. So I need to add a constant operator one level up that holds my in and out points, which I'll be storing using Shift I and Shift O. So therefore I can normally use the channel name, which I'll also just call I and O. So therefore just copy this one like this. So what this is doing again, so if we're not all the way to the right with our slider, we're in parallel draw mode and this will take place, meaning that this execute on create execute will go look one level up for some in and out values, and it will place them in this timeline position in and out points. So we need to take care of this part because this part we haven't created yet. So let's go one level up and create this operator holding those channels. So here we go, make some room maybe, drag this down. Let's create a constant chop. Let's give it the name IO. Let's give it the channel names I and O. And next I'll be adding a keyboard in chop again, so I can say, okay, on I and O in combination with Shift. So if I hit Shift and I and O, you'll see these channels being activated. So now I can say chop execute, so I can use this one. Let's remove this part, activate this toggle. Now I can say, okay, operator IO, where value 0 should be, what do we want to store? Probably this value over here. Let me see. So let's check what value we need to take here, if it's the 1 or the range mapped value. So if I view my panel again, I'll just remove those lines and just make, ooh, what's happening? Probably something's not right. But anyway, if we have one line, or let's say 3 lines, it will go from 1 to 4. And we might need this one. So let's just try this one out. It's called null 3. So let's use null3 first value, if I'm not mistaken. So indeed, I need to first check what channel was actually activated. So if I hit Shift I want to place the value, the current value of this slider, this range mapped slider to the, so if I hit Shift I, which I'll do now, Shift I, then you'll see something being recorded. But anyway, if I hit Shift I want this range mapped value put in the in channel. So if channel.name equals ki, then I want you to do this. So to value 0, otherwise, so another if it's ko, then it should go to value 1. So in that case, I can already check if that's being done correctly. So if I move it to here, my slider is probably doing nothing. Okay, so here you see those values. If I hit Shift I, you'll see it being written to the in channel. If I move it to the right, Shift O, then my out point will be set. But I don't see any lines now, so I will need to do some troubleshooting. Okay, so let's see what's wrong. Item 1, what are you complaining about? Let's see, middle mouse, syntax, invalid syntax. What did I do wrong? Yes, of course. So null1, I need to say I need channel 0. So that should be better already. Let's try again. I changed it in copy, so I will need to do it in the master, otherwise it will not happen. So 0, that's that. Okay, let's remove all those dirty copies and try it again. Again, some error. Let's see what's the issue now. Yeah, okay, no if operator, one level up, null 0, so that's the one going from 0 to 1 for the slider. If channel 0 is 1, then I want to do this. Otherwise, we will be in parallel drawing mode, and we need to take those in and output channels that we manually set using Shift I and O and put them in the timeline position in and out points per copy of the master line. So normally I'm again doing it in a copy. So I'll need to go out and in to the master and add it here. So again, let's see if this solves the issue. Remove the lines and nope. Something's happening. Check. Yes, that's better. So we still have the append mode working, and like I showed you earlier, I will just do it like this. So the append mode is doing still the same. If I zoom out and I add some extra lines, 3 lines in this case, they're not being visualized, so something's wrong. Let's go look. This is line 3. It has the correct in and out points as I was in append mode, so 3 to 4. So why is this one not doing what I expected to do? So it is trimming, yeah, and here it looks to be doing something. Let's go out. Why isn't it showing anything? There seems to be something. There is again a mismatch between my mouse and the actual drawing. So let's fix this. Okay, I did some tweaking and searching and I figured out what's actually wrong. So as you can see, still a mismatch between my mouse pointer and the actual line being drawn. So this is because the master is still listening along. So while the master should not interfere with this offsetting, we need to put this speed to rest actually. So let's go to this reset, and it should stay at 0 for the master, at least, as if it's line 0. Otherwise, for the other lines, they can actually listen to the right click and so on and update the speed. But the master, it should not interfere with this offsetting. Otherwise, it will tell all the copies what the actual offset should be, as they are cloning this master. We might use some clone immune flag for this in order to say to the copies, like, use your own copy, don't use my, don't listen always to me, not at least for the speed. So but for now we will just leave this alone and we will just go for the reset. So the thing we need is this little line of Python code. So what this means is 0 if me.parents.digits is not 0. So this means if I'm not the parent, then don't reset. But if I am, so else, you should keep my reset at 1. So now we are in the parent, having digit 0, so it will reset. But for the copies, so if I remove all the lines, and for the copies, now if I go into this copy, the reset will be at 0, or it will be off, as this digit is not 0. So now this one can have its own offset. Each line can have its own offset, while the master is not registering it, as it's kept at resetting and at 0. So this was the issue between the mouse pointer and the actual line being drawn. Okay, so that's a small intermezzo to fix this little artifact. So let's continue. Where did we leave the append versus input output points? So I can still save those, I think, at least. Let's remove everything. So I'm still able to draw lines, still able to rewind. Let's see if those counts are incremented correctly. Yes. If I try to set an endpoint, let's set an endpoint at 0. It's not happening, it seems. I know it is happening, because if I'm at 0, I'm actually using this range mapped value, which goes from 1 to the count, the append count. If that's still another fix I need to do, because I added an extra count, the append count, which is actually determining the length of the entire animation. So instead of the count, I will now use the append length plus 1. So therefore, I can start drawing some parallel lines from this moment, if I'm not mistaken. So let's see. Remove everything and repeat the example that I showed earlier. So let's draw 3 lines. I'm able to rewind them. If I go to 0, the range mapped will be to 1. If I store this value, it's still at 1, so okay, that's good. If I go here, then I'm about at the second line. You can see, or you can follow in this value. So as we drew 3 lines, it will go from 1 to 4 normally. Yes, that's the case. And now I can, with the in and out points, I can say, okay, I don't want dead on from 1 to 2, but maybe halfway there, or anyway, somewhere in between. So let's set an out point at 2.5 maybe. Yes, about here. Out point, it's set. Let's see. So if I go into my master, for example, now I can follow this code as it says, okay, the next line you'll be creating uses this code as well. So if on create, if null2 is 1, which it isn't, so it is not here, but I'll just leave it other, just back it off a little bit. So now it should be looking at the else clause. So now, because we're using the else clause, it's looking in its in and out points, and it will use those to put in the next line's in and out points. So we have 3 lines. Let's go up again, and the 4th line we are adding, I'll draw it just below. Okay, there's an error, but let's see what's going wrong. It's 1 to 5. This doesn't seem right. So what does the error tell us? Let's see. Line 17. Line 17. Did I use a 0 or O? Let's see. Come on. I used a 0 instead of an O. So that might be the issue. Let's go in and fix it in the master, of course. So this is a 0 and it should be an O. Okay, let's go out again. Let's remove everything we had. Let's repeat the thing. 1, 2, 3. We're able to rewind, but we want in parallel of the middle line, we need to draw something. So we will set our endpoint is set. We will set our out point right about here. So out point is set between about 2 and 3. So now if we back off from append mode all the way to the right, but just a bit left of all the way to the right, and we draw now, the next line should be drawn using this in and out point. So if we draw it now, we should see a 2.1 and 3.09 in the in and out points. So that's the case. So it successfully used the else clause to not take the append length, but to use the in and out points we stored 1 level up. So this means that the limit is also using those in and out points. They're range mapped again to 0 and 1, which is actually driving the trim between the 0 and 1. So now if I do this, we can draw in parallel. So if we want to draw some more stuff in parallel with the lines we already drew, we can just go to the beginning, set an in point, set an out point, now draw something. And there you are. We have some parallel drawing. We can set this out point all the way to the right. It will still be stored, but in order to actually draw in parallel, we again need to back off a little, and then we can draw. And there you have it, some parallel drawing. And then you can also do some more interesting stuff. You can expand to your animation. So now this will happen, and now let's say do something else like this. By the way, I'm setting in and out points. So that's in and let's out. And now we can do something like this. And now we have like the possibility to append. If we go all the way to the right, we can append. And this one will be unwinded the first now. and then the rest will unwind. So I hope that by now you'll understand my logic behind the append mode and the parallel drawing mode, which is now possible next to the panning, the zooming, and parallel drawing append mode. So that's all for now, I think. Let's see what we can add next.